After a blowout loss in New England, who do the Carolina Panthers want to be in 2025?
And the Dolphins look to have found some progress by returning to their roots in 2022, but they'll need to do so now moving forward without Tyreek Hill.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can hear me, Julian, the host of Locked On Panthers, and him, Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, talk about the Panthers and the Dolphins every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching our shows here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Crossover Thursday is presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. The Carolina Panthers sitting at 1-3. Welcome in the 1-3 Miami Dolphins in this Week 5 matchup at Bank of America Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Kyle, how are you feeling? Because the Dolphins finally got a win, got one on the board, but obviously a big loss that they had on Monday night in that win at home against the New York Jets.
Yeah, even when you have things go your way and you win a game, there's a loss that goes with it that has a weight that you're going to feel the rest of this season with the loss of Tyreek Hill going down with a dislocated knee and several compromised ligaments as a part of that, already been put on injured reserve, already had surgery. He had it the next day after that injury was suffered on Monday night. So, it's going to be really interesting. I think that's the primary story here for Miami is the identity offensively. The first couple weeks, they had a very different flavor, and you could tell it just wasn't clicking the way that you would expect for an offense that's in year 4 with the same quarterback and head coach. And the game plan against the Jets saw them get under center a little bit more. They were very much the traditional Shanahan play action with the wide zone and the boot game off of that with a lot of crossers. And it looked like what you would expect from the Dolphins as far as they got out on top and they kind of went up in their shell and tried to run into some loaded boxes and were milking the clock. So they didn't put up like crazy big numbers like they did in 2023, which is the last time these two teams played. But
yeah,
it looked in rhythm. It looked comfortable. It looked cohesive. And that's the thing. Now that you don't have Tyreek Hill, how do teams like Carolina this week, how do you choose to play Miami now? And the Dolphins have talked a lot about getting a lot of two shell. And, now you have to force the issue with the run to earn respect to get teams out of that. Do teams choose to continue to play you that way without Tyreek Hill in the picture? It sounds like they're kind of going to be exploratory early in this game to kind of figure out who do the Panthers want to be defensively going against us? Are they going to do the same thing where they have their own tendency breakers playing against Miami with the speed? Or is it more so, hey, we think we can handle the matchups by being true to what we usually are when we play a lot of the other teams across the league?
Yeah, and for Carolina, Jero Vero, who's really the embattled defensive coordinator here in Carolina, coming off of another poor defensive performance against New England on the road, something that I don't think a lot of people were expecting after pitching a shutout against Atlanta, making Michael Penix Jr. play. It's an early career for him, but his worst career game, looking at EPA per dropback, thanks to those stats from our friends over at True Media. So I'm very curious to see what they look like bouncing back this week, potentially. I'm also interested in just what do you think the future is going to be there in Miami for Tyreek Hill? Because I know he's owed a lot of money next season. None of it is guaranteed from what I've been reading. And this is a situation where like the vibes are really off. Mike McDaniel's down there. So I'm kind of curious what his future is going to be and how both of those kind of look out. Like, what's the situation there in Miami with both Hill and obviously McDaniel's future?
Yeah, it's a little tenuous to say the least. And, Tyreek kind of felt like he pulled the plug at the end of the year last year. And everybody kind of walked it back and decided, hey, we're going to try to make it work this year. But you kind of knew if the Dolphins didn't play well in the first half of the season, Tyreek would maybe be a trade deadline kind of guy. I think the writing's on the wall with everybody that he was never going to play the last year of his current contract in 2026, which is $36 million in total compensation. None of it is guaranteed, and that includes for injuries. So it's not like this injury puts the Dolphins big time on the hook for a bunch of cash for a product they're not going to get on the field. So that's the silver lining amidst this really unfortunate situation that has unfolded with him. But even Drew Rosenhaus, he did who's Tyreek's agent, he did a spot on local TV the next morning and talked about, we'd love to roll our sleeves up with Miami and find a number that works for everybody. If he wants to continue his career, or Tyreek would love to continue his career in South Florida. And if the Dolphins feel the same, I'm confident we can come up with a number. So even his own representation the day after the injury is acknowledging full on, like, yeah, the 2026 dollars there it's just not in the cards. It was kind of fluff on the back of that contract to get the average salary that was publicized up.
Yeah, that was obviously tough to watch. And we've seen a lot of those kind of injuries in recent times. And like, we don't need to compare which one was worse or not. But like, you see that, it's like, do we have to zoom in, ESPN? In that scenario? Like,
they showed the replay.
What do we do? Like, it's not, we saw it in real time, very clearly what was going on. Yeah. They zoom in, they go to break, and then they come back and show it again. It's like, guys, we got it. And then the reporting afterwards, like, the Dolphins believe he dislocated his knee. Like, they ain't no belief, guys. We saw what happened. So
they broadcast it on television for us all to make our own determinations, and we believe it too.
Yeah. So, I mean, God bless him. Obviously, prayers up to him. He had successful surgery. Clearly going to be something that will be significant, and hopefully he can come back and play next year if that's what he wants to do. If I was Tyreek Hill and I ever saw the replay, yeah, we're done playing football. But as far as Carolina looking at this game, first time they faced off against Miami since 2023, where they were 2-15, the only 2-15 team in NFL history. They have that beautiful distinction in a game where they fell to 0-6 before going to that bye week. Eventually, Frank Reich fired after 11 games in that year. They were sitting there trying to figure out who they were going to be 6 weeks into the season. We sit here right now after you have an emphatic win against Atlanta 2 weeks ago, a Falcons team that looked really good against Tampa. They looked good last week against Washington, understanding Jaden Daniels didn't play in that game. They looked good against Minnesota, but then against Carolina, they didn't show up. Where Carolina, they didn't look great against Jacksonville. They didn't show up for the first half against Arizona, scored some points garbage time, and started feeling good about themselves. And you thought maybe after that win against Atlanta, okay, first 2 weeks, they didn't play in the preseason. Maybe that's why they weren't ready to go, blah, blah, blah. I think it's a terrible excuse to try and say that about Dave Canales and his team and their inability to be ready to go to start off the season so far. But then last week against New England, who Miami played a couple weeks ago, that's not a great Patriots team, just absolutely runs through this Panthers team. Yeah. So I just want to know who they're going to be this season. Are they going to do this thing again where they decide to start off 1-5, 1-6, just be completely out of it by the middle of October and the fan base checks out? Or do they actually want to be what Dave Canales says they are, a team that is going to fight, that's going to show that effort, not going to back down, and go out there and beat a team that's very beatable in Miami on Sunday? Like, that's what I want to see. And I want to see guys also like Xavier Legette, who he missed the last 2 games of a hamstring. He'll be back out there on Sunday. We talked to him in the locker room on Wednesday about his struggles early on this season, where he's been one of the worst starting receivers in the NFL, if not the worst. And he was saying how he thinks a lot of people on the outside, they just want to see him prove it first that he can be a good player, and saying to people like he thinks it's wild for anyone to say that he's not a good football player, which certainly is true because he's in the NFL, so he's a good football player. But is he a good football player at this level? So far, I haven't seen it in 2025. So I just want to know who the Carolina Panthers are, because just let me know right now so we can recalibrate and do the rest of these shows for the next 12 weeks of the season, and then have no expectations other than this is going to be a bad team. That's what I just want to know about who Carolina is going to be this season, Kyle.
I mean, Julian, I thought it was a typo that we had 4 catches for 8 yards for Xavier Legette through the first 2 games that he's played this season. And I feel for Carolina as a team that has also dealt with its ample share of injuries. And I know what Carolina, the hand that they've been dealt with, the offensive line, some of the wide receivers, not just Legette, but Coker going down. Yeah. I think that was kind of a casual fan that doesn't follow the Panthers, doesn't recognize. I heard that Coker went down, and I said, man, that's a bummer for Carolina, because
the day after they traded Adam Thielen, by the way, Kyle. So they were expecting him to play a big role.
I can sympathize with where you are at, and as the guy who runs the show with the longest running playoff win drought in the NFL, I can certainly recognize the struggles of apathy amongst your fan base as well when it becomes apparent that, hey, it might not be this year either. So a couple of birds of a feather here as we get ready for this week 5 matchup between Carolina and Miami.
Yeah, just get me to the playoffs, honestly. That's all I would love to see. They don't have to win, just get there. But yeah, receiver injuries. Legette's back this week. Jalen Coker still on IR. They did not open up his practice window this week. David Moore had a significant dislocation of his elbow on Sunday. He got carted off. I've never seen anyone get carted off for an elbow injury. So it had to have obviously been serious. So that's something that's going to keep him out for, it sounds like, past those 4 weeks on injured reserve. JT Sanders, he'll be out again this week of an ankle. And as you mentioned, Robert Hunt, Austin Corbett. Hunt's probably done for the season with the torn biceps. Corbett could be back here in 4 or 5 weeks, depending on how his MCL recovery is. And then Chandler Zavala suffering another injury to his knee. It sounded like it was similar to what he had before in the preseason patellar, but still kind of trying to figure out what exactly that's going to mean. But he's going to be out for 4 weeks on injured reserve as well. So yeah, injuries happening all across the NFL. It is a battle of attrition. It's a battle between 1 and 3 teams on Sunday here in Carolina. We'll talk about the key matchups for both the Panthers and Dolphins in this game on Sunday here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even follow the live lines during the game. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Also makes it a little nervy, if we're being honest. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, back here on this Locked On NFL crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins. We're presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers. Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins. Both these teams sitting at 1 and 3, Kyle, hoping to get to 2 and 3, try to get things back on track. Of course, a tenuous situation for Mike McDaniel down there in Miami, and could be a tenuous situation for Dave Canales here in Carolina in year 2 if they start off 1 and 4, because if you can't beat New England, and you can't beat Miami, who hasn't looked great, and they might be firing their coach in a couple weeks' time, you're probably not beating Dallas next week. And Lord, the Jets are the Jets, but that's not a gimme either. And only Buffalo and Green Bay follow those games. So it's time to get the winning if you're going to win it all this season. Yeah. What are some matchups you're looking at from the Dolphins' perspective heading to this game on Sunday?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the big challenges that I think Carolina does present is their interior defensive line versus an interior offensive line in Miami that's on its 3rd right guard choice, which I believe is where Carolina finds himself as well. Yep. So we're deep in the well here, and sometimes it's hard to just find 5 guys, let alone find 8 guys you feel good about. So it's Cole Strange for Miami at right guard. He got his first start. He was picked up off the Browns practice squad the first week after the entire right side of the offensive line goes down, where Austin Jackson lands on IR. James Daniels, the team's big free agent signing, lasted 3 snaps and then ended up on IR with a pec issue. So it's Cole Strange, and then rookie Jonah Savaianaya at left guard has really struggled in pass protection. He's been a better run blocker, but the Dolphins have really struggled running to that right guard position, both the A and B gap in the run game. And then the pass protection with both spots has been very intermittent against a group that's got Derek Brown, Bobby Brown, A'Shawn Robinson, Tershawn Wharton, who they signed in free agency. That group of guys, I think, creates some mismatch challenges for Miami that can be very disruptive, even if they're not like shooting into gaps. Miami struggled with those guys to anchor, where those guys, I think, have the opportunity to play on the plus side of the line of scrimmage. and that can potentially disrupt the run game, and it can disrupt Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, absolutely. And Derek Brown, I mean, you have Brian Baldinger over at NFL Network who always does his Baldy breakdowns, and he's been doing every week a body toss from Derek Brown, just throwing an offensive lineman to the side. So I think that's probably an expectation to happen again this week, considering the situation there for Miami. I'm curious to see how guys like Turk Wharton, who you mentioned, and Bobby Brown, the third, who came over during free agency from Kansas City and LA, respectively, how they can elevate their games. Last week, Wharton came back after missing the last 2 games prior to that against Arizona and Atlanta of a hamstring. A'Shawn Robinson, he's been steady so far, but that's going to be a group that really needs to elevate this defense that had a tough week last week. And I felt like if they could have the impact by bringing in Brown the third, bringing in Wharton, pairing them mainly with Derek Brown, who's also coming back off of injury and basically a free agent addition for Carolina, the way they're going to view that with A'Shawn Robinson, they can have the kind of impact that Robert Hunt, the former Miami Dolphin, had for Carolina offensive line last year, along with Damian Lewis. Then this team gets to take a step forward. So Sunday would certainly be an area to look at. And you did mention how Carolina's down to their third right guard. It's going to be Brady Christensen. And that's like one that's been weird, Kyle, because he started at left guard 2 years ago, played every single game, every single snap until he broke his leg in the finale against New Orleans, came back to next year after in the offensive line. He got hurt, tore his bicep, and the offensive line was a disaster from then. And then they brought in Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt to replace him. So he's a guy who's started games at center, at guard, at tackle, and they had Ike Ekwonu miss first game. They've had Hunt and Corbett go down. Chandler Zavala, who's now out, he was starting at right guard on Sunday. They brought in like Brandon Walton, who you would think be like their 10th guy to come in instead of Brady Christensen. That's a weird thing, how it's taken this long for them to play. So it might not be that bad of a situation for Carolina there. But one matchup I'm certainly looking at is the passing game of Carolina versus the Dolphins' passing defense. Would it be fair to say the Dolphins' passing defense has not been very good so far?
I think not very good is doing it a bit of a favor. It's all new, so there's a whole lot of miscommunication with that group. There's spacing issues with that group. Teams have gotten a lot of run against Tyrell Dodson, the linebacker in coverage. The nickel position right now is Cornell Armstrong, who didn't play for 2 years, and they signed the third week of training camp is the nickel right now when they want to go with true nickel and not 3 safeties on the field. So there's some getting in the middle of the field if you want it. I will say Jack Jones and Rasul Douglas, who were both late adds in training camp as well. Those guys have steadily kind of got better. You feel like they're settling in, but it's all the stuff in the middle of the field that is just there's a lot of space right now to be had.
Yeah, and that's something Carolina needs to take advantage of because this pass offense has, for the most part, under Bryce Young, has left a lot to be desired. I put this stat out there on Sunday following the game. In 20 of his 32 starts in his 3 seasons here in Carolina, he has failed to throw for over 200 yards passing. And in the modern NFL, that's just not how you get it done on Sundays. And is it all on Bryce? Certainly not. There have been issues like wide receiver injuries, but 150 yards on Sunday, and then the Sunday prior in a win, 121 yards. That's not what you want to see, especially against Miami Dolphins team, who right now on EPA per pass throws by their opponent, they're 30th in the NFL. They're 26th in opponents' explosive play rate on passing plays. Now, Carolina is only 24th in EPA per pass attempt, and then for actually passing the ball, an actual throw, and only 29th in explosive play rate. But you have Tedero McMillan, who's been really good for them so far. You have Xavier Legette coming back, and Dave Canales talked about this on Wednesday, that all they need is just that one play to pop for XL, then maybe he'll finally get going. You have Hunter Renfrow, who still trying to work his way back. Jimmy Horn Jr., who has not gotten a jersey the first 4 weeks of the season. He's going to get an opportunity. Finally, he can potentially be a playmaker, add speed to that offense. So there's an opportunity against a not a very talented and also a banged up secondary. And the one game that Bryce really looked good, especially in that second half, was against Arizona, because every single one of those guys were dropping like flies in that game. So if this is what it takes to have a banged up secondary that's also largely devoid of talent for him to play well and to put up big numbers, then let it be on Sunday. Because if it's not going to be on Sunday, then I don't know when it's going to be, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. And I think for Miami with their pass rush too, Justin Fields averaged 3.7 yards or seconds from snap to release on his drop back. So if it hasn't been Jalen Phillips, it's been very inconsistent from a pass rush perspective. And that's something where for Bryce, he's already kind of a slippery player. They haven't had a great deal of success finishing their pressure opportunities. So spacing issues on the back end, inconsistent up front. It should tee up well for Bryce to have some opportunities to make some plays. And then it's a matter of, do you make good decisions with the ball? And are you able to throw accurately into those spaces to maximize the yardage on those opportunities that this secondary is probably going to give you?
Yeah, and he can beat teams with his legs, especially when scrambling. I'm glad you brought up the pass rush because I was looking at that prior to the Week 4 game against New York for Miami, and then even for Carolina or for on Sunday against New England. Like both these teams, just looking at PFF pressure percentage, were bottom 3 in the NFL. Then Miami went out there and had a 55.6 pressure percentage and has climbed up to 20th. Carolina, they're tied for dead last with New Orleans, which is just not the company you want to keep. But that's the neighborhood they've been living in the last couple of years. You would imagine they would have liked to have maybe paid somebody to be a premier pass rusher for them instead of trading him to New York and then using those picks, one of them, to bring in a receiver who so far hasn't done anything for you in Xavier Legette. But, we'll talk about team building another day. So that will be an area I'm also looking at to see how Carolina can get after that rusher, if after the quarterback at all. And then both of these offensive lines have been fairly solid middle of the road as far as just protecting their quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out on Sunday. Those are some of the key matchups to look out for on Sunday between the Panthers and the Dolphins. What do these two teams individually need to do to win the game on Sunday? We'll go over some of those keys here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple for me. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, back here on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins. Again, go over the prize picks and download the app and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in the lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Julian Council, Kyle Krabs looking at this game on Sunday. One of these teams well, maybe we could have a tie. We just saw one on Sunday night, but hopefully for one of these teams, they will go to 2-3 on Sunday. As Lord knows, no one wants 1-4, and they definitely don't want to be 1-3-1, even though I guess that's better than 1-4, but will not feel great. Kyle, what are the keys for Miami? What are the things they got to do to get to 2-3 and, of course, avoid 1-4 and, Lord forbid, 1-3-1?
Yeah, I think I look at it's a low-hanging fruit thing to reference, but third downs have been such a prominent piece of the puzzle for this team on both sides of the ball. They're second in conversion rate on third downs offensively, and they're 31st in the NFL defensively in third down conversion rate. As far as if I told you the Dolphins convert 49% of their third down opportunities, you'd say, hey, that's pretty good, until the other side of the coin is they're giving up 51% of their third down opportunities. And it's a tale of third and longs and third and nots. When they are in third and shorts, they are getting almost no stops. And then you have the fourth down reps where they've given up 5 of 6 fourth down attempts as well, because it's all 3 yards or less. And teams are able to kind of get after their run fits. And they've got 2 young guys on the defensive interior and their ability to get off of blocks. Maybe you have the perfect play call in and you shut down Justin Fields to the outside, and the backside pursuit player is nowhere to be found. And the 2 guys in the B and C gap are laying on their bellies on the backside, and Justin Fields turns around and pivots back around and runs 43 yards for a touchdown on a fourth down run. So it's just been like a perfect storm for them, where they've talked a lot about winning on first and second down to set up not third and shorts. And their offensive pathway has been Mike McDaniel at times has gotten too keen on trying to feed his two marquee wide receivers. Well, now he doesn't have one of them. So are you willing to be a little bit more methodical in the way that teams have kind of manipulated you to get into third and shorts so that you can get to third and shorts more often and continue to live in that regard? I think early down success to set up more third and shorts than Carolina is a big piece of this puzzle for Miami to address that big defensive issue and keep that thing that's working on offense going without Tyreek.
I mean, staying on schedule, like everybody talks about it,
Yeah.
it can really be that simple. Offensively, obviously, there's other things you have to do to have success, but I don't know any defense in the world out there that's going to be successful if they're constantly in 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2,
Yeah.
3rd and short situations, and that apparently has been an issue for Miami. Looking at Carolina in this game, they were actually pretty good on special teams the first 3 weeks of the season. They had a great game against Atlanta with Ryan Fitzgerald, the rookie kicker, making 57-yarder, making the rest of his kicks. And he had his little dirty kickoffs where Atlanta could not field those. It was like 4 times where they just bobbled it there on the kickoff, and they were doing an excellent job. Then on Sunday in New England, all that went away as they gave up a punt return for a touchdown, another long punt return that led to a touchdown for New England, and Fitzgerald missed an extra point, missed a field goal. Just a disaster. They got to get back to doing what they did the first 3 weeks on special teams, because that's an area of the game where a lot of people want to ignore that, but you can lose games in that manner. And I look at the game on Sunday where Dave Canales decides, let's run the ball on 3rd and 10 from New England's 45, get 2 yards, and then on 4th and 8, kick it from the 43 from New England. And then what happened on that kick? A punt return for a touchdown completely flipped the game. So that, in my opinion, kind of lost in the game right then and there, and their inability to respond. And a lot of folks also have complained about the lack of rushing attempts for Chuba Hubbard so far this season. Well, big reason is they're always playing from behind. If you can't play from ahead, you really can't establish the run. And I'm looking at these two teams. The Dolphins and Panthers are 25th and 26th respectively in the NFL in time spent ahead on offense. So if you're overall, so if you're not going to be ahead of the Dolphins with the lead, like they kind of started out the game on Sunday against New England, then you're going to have a hard time getting Chuba involved, being able to lean on that, take pressure off of Bryce Young in the passing game. And then you got to get on track offensively, especially I talked about earlier with the matchups. You're looking at a pass defense where they can be had, especially as you mentioned, over the middle of the field. You got to find ways to get more than Tedero McMillan involved on Sunday in this game if you're going to end up getting a win at home, because if you haven't won on the road so far this season, so Lord knows you got to win at home if that's going to be a trend, which Dave Canales is 2-9 so far for his first 11 road games here in Carolina. So they're not going to have success on the road. They got to have success on home if they want to take a step forward here in 2025 and not have yet another disaster on their hands this season. Looking at the line over at FanDuel, our betting partners here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Miami, 1.5-point road favorite. I'm a little surprised, but also not surprised because Vegas just does not like this Panthers team. And I mean, rightfully so. They got to prove it to them first. Any thoughts on that? I don't have a prediction necessarily because I don't know what the hell to expect from the Panthers on Sunday, but any kind of final thoughts as far as this game goes, Kyle?
Yeah, I think this is a game that is going to be another one of those. There's 3 to 5 plays that you can look at and say, hey, these are the pivotal plays in the game. And depending on who gets more of them, that's going to tip the scales. The Dolphins have played, they got smoked by the Colts in week 1, and they've played 3 consecutive games of that nature. I just don't, even if Miami comes out and they win this football game, I don't think they're playing strongly enough in all phases for this to be a game that Miami wins going away. And I don't think it's a hot take to say the same about Carolina with kind of the ups and downs. Now they got after Atlanta really well. I would be surprised if Miami had that same degree of struggles because it seems like they have found something to lean into, and they've kind of progressively gotten a little bit more stable on offense. And defensively, it's been like you plug a hole here and 2 more leaks spring up over here, and then you plug one of those and the leak that you just plugged pops back open again. So I expect this to be a closely contested game, and I'm glad you mentioned special teams too. Miami has they averaged 12 yards better field position against the Jets than the Jets did offensively. And a lot of that was due to the kicking game. And I thought the Dolphins had their worst game covering kicks with the exception of the kickoff return that the Patriots had. So we can commiserate in getting tagged for special teams touchdowns by New England. So I think that piece of this puzzle will be another big one as well. And it seems like more than any time in recent memory, special teams on a weekly basis is helping decide games with blocked field goals and kickoffs and
Yeah.
kickoffs out of bounds that are setting teams up on short fields to go kick game-winning kicks, all that kind of stuff. So I think that third phase, who shows up in the best way in that regard, I think that's my final thought for this game.
Yeah, especially for these two teams where they've had issues on offense and on defense. They got to find some advantage wherever they can. But that's Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins. I'm Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. Again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check us out here on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Please subscribe, leave some comments there, and everything else you guys want to hit us up to over on social media. I'll be back on Friday, talk more about the keys of victory, looking at the injury report and giving my final thoughts. Kyle, what you got on tap on Friday for your listeners?
Yeah, so going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into the matchups, planning on Thursday on watching some tape in the afternoon of Carolina in their last couple games and just trying to lay out some of the matchups that if I were Mike McDaniel, maybe I would be trying to push to nudge this game in my favor. So we'll do that road mapping on Friday, and then we will have after the game on Sunday a live Dolphins squad with Jim Grieshaber and Jeff Scanina, former Dolphin, and myself for an hour after the game on YouTube.
Love it. Love it. And thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Panthers and Locked On Dolphins your first listen of the day, the NFL season. Of course, it's here for your second listen. Get a double dose of Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Rowland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you inside the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. It's going to wrap it up for me, Julian Council, for him, Kyle Krabs. We'll talk to you guys on Friday.